Well, good morning, guys, and thank you for joining me. It is day 4 of our week. We are still journeying through the song Worth It All, and I'm going to get right to it, picking up in verse 9 of chapter 22 in Genesis. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order and bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Do not lay your hand on that boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in the thick by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the name of the place, The Lord Will Provide. As it is said to this day, on the mount of the Lord it shall be provided. What in the world do you think Abraham was thinking in that moment? Other than probably, I don't know what he was thinking. I know what I would have been thinking. Help me, Jesus. Fix this, Jesus. To be asked to sacrifice anything, I think sometimes as a human, our nature just like, I don't want to sacrifice because that means I have to give up. And if I give up, that means I'm losing out. But when we know and trust that the one who is asking us to sacrifice cares for us, fights for us, definitely has a greater outcome for us that we have to trust that we may not know, I think it lessens the fear, but it allows the faith to grow to a measure that only certain situations and circumstances allows that faith to grow. It's kind of like playing a trust game with someone where you're like, will you catch me? You're facing backwards and you're falling back and you're trusting that group to catch you. And it's exercises that are done with different groups to help build trust. The more we fall into the Lord, the more we fall into the calling of God, the more we fall in to the things that He's asking us to give up and letting go and trusting that He's going to provide, the greater our faith grows, the greater the relationship grows. I can only think about what Isaac was thinking as his dad was doing all these things to him, but I also want to believe, because of the man that Abraham was, that there was a peace within him because he knew and he had to stay faithful and bold in his journey to commit himself to trust that the Lord would provide. He knew it. He had to speak it because in this tension-filled moment, and I'm pretty sure the tension was thick for Isaac especially, but he had to give his son a comfort to know that his heavenly Father would not forsake him. In that moment when the angel spoke, I can only imagine the peace, the resolve that came over Abraham. But I also believe that there probably was this proud lift of affirmation because he knew it would be worth it. He knew that trusting God was greater. This crazy ask of sacrificing your only son, trusting Him to provide the sacrifice that would permit him from having to do such a crazy thing that is so hard to even fathom. That's the kind of trust that I want to have. That's the kind of understanding. That's the kind of bold faith that I would want to have as I'm journeying through life, because I look at Isaac and I think, wow, what did this show him about his dad's understanding and trust in the Lord? That type of leadership, that type of example of faith, it will change you, radically change you. And I want to encourage you today, as I have been processing through this, I'm encouraging myself to trust and see whatever the Lord is asking us to do in this season of life. There's something I'm pretty sure many people have had to give up. Many people have had to let go of a lot of things. And I believe that in doing that, it allows us to have to really trust that the Lord will provide. That we will find a way when there is no way. For some people, it's a matter of just getting a diagnosis of an illness. It's the financial burden of losing a job. It's the fear of having a conversation. That's been my journey over the past few weeks, is just having conversations that I know and felt in my soul that it was time to have, or that I was to initiate, and then the fear of what happens with having that conversation and the outcome of that, but trusting that God will provide peace. He will provide a covering. He will provide whatever is needed for that situation. That's the place where I encourage us to go today. As we sing through this chorus, I just want you guys, it is so simple, but it is so powerful. It's amazing to think about the weight of a sacrifice, and when you know that it's going to be worth it, it's so easy to do it. It's so easy to make the sacrifice when you know it's worth it, but the hard part is making the sacrifice when you're not sure. For those of you right now who are sitting in a position where you're having to make a choice and you're not sure if it's going to be worth it, you trust the Lord, but you're still at that place of saying, God, I don't see how outside of your divine intervention this is going to work. That's the place where it's okay to be. That's the place where it's actually cool to be, because you get to stand in Abraham's shoes, and you get to experience a God that is consistent in his faith, in his promises, and in his truths, that he will provide. And those around you who get to see the Lord provide for you in this season, they are the ones too who will be radically changed, just like Isaac was. To see his father's faith, I assure you, is one of the most powerful, life-giving lessons that he could have ever experienced. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it all. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it all. I believe it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it all. No matter the sacrifice, it's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it. Oh, it's gonna be worth it all. Whatever it is that the Lord is asking you, or you feel prompt to sacrifice, I encourage you to trust and go all in and know that it is going to be worth it. He will provide. You guys have a blessed day. See you tomorrow.